She thought he was just another stranger in need. What she didn't know was that he would come back years later and change her life forever. It started with a sound she never wanted to hear again, someone crying outside her apartment door. Claire sat at her kitchen table, the same place she'd sat for the last 3 nights in silence, her hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug, staring at the shadows on the wall. The city buzzed outside, but in her hallway, there was only the soft sound of weeping. She didn't open the door. Not the first time. But on the 3rd night, when the crying turned into coughing, she got up. She peeked through the peephole. A man sat against the hallway wall, knees drawn to his chest, face buried beneath a hood. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Claire stepped back from the door and opened the fridge. The casserole she made earlier sat untouched. She took out a plate, added some bread, and slid the food into the microwave. She opened the door, left the plate just outside, and closed it again without a word. The next morning, the plate was gone. She didn't know why she did it. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was because she saw something in the way his shoulders trembled, the way he tried to be invisible in a hallway meant for no one. The next night, she left food again. No note. No name. Just warmth in a world that had gone cold. And again the next night. And the next. He never knocked. Never asked. Never said a word. She never saw his face. But still, every night at exactly 9 p.m., she left something at the door. A sandwich. A hot bowl of soup. A piece of apple pie she bought from the bakery she couldn't afford. It became a rhythm. A quiet understanding between strangers. Claire never told anyone about the man in the hallway. It wasn't a story to share. It was something sacred, something that made her feel human in a world that had taken so much from her. Her ex-husband had left 2 years ago. Her parents had passed in the same month. Her ex-husband had left 2 years ago. Her parents had passed in the same month. She was alone, working night shifts at the hospital, coming home to a silence she couldn't fill. But now she came home for something else. She began cooking again, not for herself, but for him. Something about it made her feel needed. She didn't realize it yet, but she was healing too. One night, she opened the door just a little wider, hoping to catch a glimpse. But the plate was already gone. He was fast. Or maybe he was watching her too. For 60 nights, she left food. For 60 nights, the plate disappeared. And then, on the 61st night, it didn't. The food stayed untouched. She waited until morning. Still there. She walked down the hallway, heart tight in her chest, and picked up the plate. The food had gone cold. Her eye searched the corners, the stairwell, the shadows, but he was gone. She whispered into the silence, "I hope you're okay." There was no answer. Just an empty hallway and a feeling she couldn't shake, like something had ended before it began. She didn't know then that this man, this stranger, would reappear in her life in a way that would shatter everything she thought she knew about kindness, and about who he really was. Claire kept checking the hallway for days. Each night she prepared a plate anyway, just in case. Leftovers from her own dinner. A sandwich with extra mustard the way she'd guessed he might like. Something sweet tucked into the corner. She left it out like always. At 9 p.m. But every morning, the plate was still there. Untouched. By the 5th night, she stopped trying. Her apartment felt different now. Too quiet. Too clean. She missed the soft clatter of the plate returning empty. She missed the hope. It was strange to miss someone she had never met. One night, she sat by the door with her back against it, plate in her lap, wondering what she had really been doing all this time. Helping a stranger? Or trying to keep herself from falling apart? Claire hadn't cried in months. She didn't allow herself that luxury. But that night, she did. She sat on the floor and cried for everything, for her broken marriage, for her father's unfinished stories, for the way her mother used to hum while stirring soup. And for a man whose name she never knew. And then life went on. Claire got promoted. She moved to a better apartment downtown. The hallway became a memory. The stranger became a story she told herself to fall asleep. Maybe she had imagined him. Maybe he'd never really been there at all. 2 years passed. She changed her hair. She bought new curtains. She stopped cooking dinner for two. She stopped believing in unfinished stories. Until one evening, on her way home from work, Claire's car sputtered out at a red light. She pulled over on the shoulder, frustrated and exhausted, the city flickering behind her. She called a tow truck. Waited for an hour. Nothing. Her phone was at 3%. It started to rain. She sat back against her seat and sighed. Of course. That's when a black SUV slowed beside her. The window rolled down. A man leaned out, dark jacket, clean cut, sharp eyes but gentle voice. You okay? Claire hesitated. Car died. I'm waiting on a tow. He looked at her, then at the flat tires. I don't think they're coming. You want to ride somewhere? She should have said no. Everything in her life had taught her to say no. But something in his face made her pause. The way he looked at her, not like a stranger, but like someone who already knew who she was. I'm not going far, he added. Just downtown. I can drop you. She studied him for a long second, then nodded. Inside the SUV, the heat was warm, the silence comfortable. She stared out the window as the city moved past. I'm Claire, she said finally. I know, he said quietly. She turned. He smiled gently. You used to leave a plate of food outside your door. Every night. She fed a poor man every night. Years later, his secret changed her life. For a man you never saw. She stared at him. His hood was gone. His face was clean. The scars were faint but still there. His eyes, kind, familiar, held something she remembered from the hallway floor. Her breath caught. It was you? He nodded. I tried to find you again, she whispered. But you disappeared. I didn't want to come back empty-handed, he said. She stared at him. The silence was thick between them, trembling with something neither had words for yet. Why now? She asked. Because I'm finally in a place to give something back, he said. What do you mean? He pulled into a parking lot and stopped the car. Then he turned to her and said 6 words that would change everything. I bought your hospital this morning. Claire sat frozen in the passenger seat. She thought she misheard. You bought what? He looked ahead through the windshield, quiet for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. St. Thomas Medical Center, he said. Where you work? I finalized it this morning. She shook her head. That's not possible. That's a private facility. You'd need millions just to. I know, he said softly. I have more than that now. She stared at him. Really looked at him for the first time. The jawline was sharper. His coat was new. There was a calm stillness to the way he spoke, like someone used to control, used to boardrooms and decisions that changed lives. This wasn't the man from her hallway. But it was. "What happened to you?" she asked. He turned to her. "You did." And then, slowly, he told her everything. His name was Noah. He had been an engineer, working overseas. He came back to New York after a tragic loss. His wife and daughter had died in a fire while he was away. The guilt consumed him. He sold everything, gave up his job, and lived out of his car for months until it was towed. That's when he ended up on her hallway floor. "I didn't want to live anymore," he said. "Not until the night you left that first plate." Claire swallowed. "It was just food." "No," he said. "It was a reason. For 60 nights, I told myself if someone like you believed I was still worth feeding, maybe I was still worth existing." He paused, his voice catching. "When I disappeared, it was because I left the city. Checked myself into a recovery program. Got help. Started over. Built a business in memory of my daughter." Claire blinked fast. He continued, "We started with mobile health vans for unhoused people. Now we have a foundation that buys out-of-budget hospitals and restructures them to serve the community better." "Why St. Thomas?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because you're there," he said. "And I knew if I wanted to make a difference anywhere, it had to be where someone first made a difference in me." Claire didn't speak. Her throat was tight, heart pounding. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded napkin. Softly, he placed it on the center console between them. She opened it. Written in her own handwriting, faded but still visible, were the words, "Be warm tonight." "I kept this," he said. "From the third night. When you left soup and wrote that." Claire touched the napkin gently, as if it might dissolve. "I don't understand," she whispered. "What do you want from me?" He smiled. "Nothing. Just to say thank you. And to let you know. I never forgot." Tears spilled down her cheeks. Noah didn't touch her. He just sat there, quiet and steady, like he had waited a long time to give her something she didn't know she needed, a moment where someone remembered her, too. The rain tapped gently on the windshield. For the first time in years, Claire felt something deeper than sadness. She felt seen. The car ride continued in silence. Not the kind that made you uncomfortable. The kind that holds the weight of everything said and unsaid. Claire stared at the napkin in her lap. Her handwriting. Her small act. Preserved like it meant something. She couldn't stop shaking. Noah parked beside an old building, familiar, run down, but with new scaffolding and lights inside. Claire squinted. "This is St. Jude's Clinic." He nodded. "Was. We're reopening it next month. Free services. No insurance needed." She looked at him. "Why are you showing me this?" He smiled faintly. "Because I'm hoping you'll run it." Claire blinked. "Me? You're one of the best trauma nurses in the city. Everyone at St. Thomas says the same thing. But more than that, I know what kind of person you are when no one's looking." She swallowed. "You don't owe me anything." "It's not about owing," he said. "It's about legacy. I got another shot because someone saw me when I was invisible. This place, this mission, it's not mine unless it has people like you in it." Claire looked through the window. A group of construction workers walked past. One waved to Noah. He nodded back like they were old friends. There was no arrogance in him. No performance. Just presence. Do you trust me? He asked quietly. She turned to him. I don't know yet, she admitted. He nodded. That's fair. She added, but I'm here, aren't I? Noah smiled. They stepped out of the SUV and walked into the skeleton of the clinic. Inside, the walls were still bare. The paint was half done. The reception desk was new. A chalkboard on the wall read, "Health belongs to everyone." Claire ran her fingers along the counter. It smells like hope. Noah chuckled. Hope with fresh plaster. She stopped and looked at him. All this, she said. You built it on your own. He paused. I built it with every meal you gave me. With every silent kindness I didn't know how to repay. It's not mine, it's ours. Claire couldn't speak. A part of her wanted to walk out, pretend this wasn't real. That she was still that lonely woman in the hallway with a cracked plate and no purpose. But another part, quiet and fierce, was waking up. You think I can do this? She asked. I know you can. She looked around the room. What if I fail? He turned to her. Then we fail together. And try again. She let the moment settle inside her. Let it find the broken edges and soften them. Claire Hart had spent years saving others. But no one had ever asked her what she needed. Not like this. This wasn't charity. It was restoration. She looked back at Noah. Okay. Okay? She nodded. Let's build something that matters. He extended his hand. She didn't shake it. She hugged him. Just once. And this time, it was her shoulders that trembled. That night, Claire didn't go home. She stayed. She walked through the clinic until the last worker left, traced every corner of the place that would soon carry her name on a plaque she hadn't asked for. Noah stayed too. He didn't hover. He didn't ask questions. He just existed near her, like he knew the space between them wasn't something to be filled, but honored. At one point, they both ended up in what would become the break room. The only furniture was a table and 2 folding chairs. Claire poured them both coffee from a thermos in her bag. He laughed softly. Still carry that thing. Some habits don't die easy, she said, handing him a cup. They Saturday. For a long time, neither spoke. Then, Claire said, you know. I used to think silence was punishment. He looked at her. When my husband left, he didn't even say goodbye. Just a note and an empty closet. After my parents died, all I heard was the hum of the refrigerator. I thought if the world was quiet, it meant I'd done something wrong. He didn't interrupt. Just waited. Later that week, the clinic had its soft opening. The community came out in small numbers, an elderly man with a cane, a single mother with 2 coughing kids, a teenager with bruised eyes and a shy voice. Claire greeted each of them like she'd known them for years. She listened. She took notes. She scheduled appointments. Noah watched from the background, his role no longer to lead, but to support. At the end of the day, Claire stood at the counter, flipping through intake forms. Noah approached, holding a simple brown envelope. She looked up. What's this? He placed it in her hands. Inside was a photo. A grainy image from a security camera, her, leaving a plate of food outside her apartment door, head down, barefoot. And behind her, just barely visible in the shadows, was him. Curled against the wall. Watching. Claire's throat tightened. I didn't mean to keep it, he said. I found it when I was leaving the building for good. But it reminded me. He paused. That even when the world forgets you, someone can still remember the version of you worth saving. Claire touched the photo like it was a piece of her she hadn't known was missing. I'm not a hero, she whispered. Noah smiled. No. You're something harder. What's that? A good person. In a broken world. She folded the photo and placed it gently in her coat pocket. Then she looked up. And for the first time in years, she smiled without apology. A week later, Claire sat outside the clinic on a wooden bench, rain gently falling. A cup of coffee in her hand. No umbrella. Noah walked out, pausing at the door, then joined her in silence. They sat together in the rain like old friends who didn't need warmth to feel comfort. Claire stared ahead. Did you ever think we'd end up here? She asked. I thought I'd be dead, he said simply. Aid. But maybe wholeness isn't the goal. What is? He smiled. Continuing. Claire leaned back, letting the rain hit her face. Do you ever wonder why I helped you? She asked. He nodded. All the time. I think, she said softly, it's because I knew what it felt like to be hungry. Not for food. For recognition. For proof that I mattered. Noah looked at her. You mattered to me. She turned to him. Their eyes met. Nothing was said. And that silence, once unbearable, was now filled with something tender. 2 months later, the clinic opened officially. A line formed outside before sunrise. Inside, the walls were freshly painted. The waiting area had donated books. The break room had fresh flowers every Monday, Claire's quiet tradition. That morning, before the doors opened, Noah asked Claire to come outside. She followed him around to the side of the building. A new plaque had just been installed. The Claire Heart Center for Compassionate Care. She stared at it. Didn't breathe for a moment. I can't accept that, she whispered. You already did, Noah said. She blinked fast. What if I'm not enough for it? You were enough when you left soup in the hallway, he replied. This is just the echo of that. She touched the plaque. It felt real. Heavy. Permanent. Like everything she had never allowed herself to hope for. People began to arrive. The ribbon was cut. Cameras flashed. But Claire didn't care about the photos. She cared about the woman in line holding her baby. The man too proud to ask for help but waiting anyway. The teenager who hadn't spoken a word but stared at the ceiling like he didn't know how to belong. She looked at all of them. And then she smiled. Because she knew exactly what to do. 2 months later, the clinic opened officially. A line formed outside before sunrise. Inside, the walls were freshly painted. The waiting area had donated books. The break room had fresh flowers every Monday, Claire's quiet tradition. Th. She had built a life that reminded her every single day. Sometimes the smallest kindness, the plate, the pause, the moment someone feels seen, can echo louder than 1,000 words. And when it does, it saves lives.